A Quebec family has just 2 weeks to pack up their entire life and leave Canada after 15 years. Meanwhile, if you're crossing into the US, your phone might be searched without warning. This week's migration news between the US and Canada reveals a dramatic shift that could affect millions. Stay with me. Welcome back to Migration Weekly, where we break down the most important immigration and border news affecting the US-Canada corridor. I'm your host here in Infox Press, and today we're covering 3 major stories that happened just this week that could change how people move between these two countries. From heartbreaking deportation cases to new border security measures, here's what you need to know. Let's start with the story that's breaking hearts across social media. A Quebec family, after building their life in Canada for 15 years, has been given just 2 weeks to return to the United States. 15 years. That's longer than some of you watching have been alive. This isn't just paperwork. This is about kids who only know Canada as home, parents who built businesses, communities that are losing neighbors. Immigration lawyers are calling this decision harsh, and it highlights something crucial. Even long-term residents aren't guaranteed to stay. What makes this particularly striking is the timing. This comes as Canada announced its new immigration plan, reducing permanent resident admissions from current levels to just 365,000 by 2027. Translation? It's getting harder to stay in Canada, even if you're already there. But the changes aren't just happening in Canada. If you're crossing into the United States, and I mean any crossing, even as a Canadian tourist, you need to know this. Electronic device searches have skyrocketed. U.S. Customs and Border Protection is now conducting significantly more searches of phones, laptops, and tablets. Immigration lawyers report their clients are genuinely scared to travel to the U.S. because of increased scrutiny and what many are calling discriminatory practices. Think about what's on your phone right now. Your photos, messages, work emails, personal conversations. All of that could be searched at the border without a warrant. This affects everyone: tourists, business travelers, families visiting relatives. Here's what connects these stories. Both countries are tightening their borders simultaneously. Canada removed over 16,000 people last year and plans to increase removals by 25% this year. The U.S. northern border saw migrants from 97 different countries, with 80% of apprehensions happening in just one sector. Meanwhile, tourism is taking a hit. U.S. tourism organizations expected 15% growth this year, but are now forecasting a 10% drop in international visitors. Canadian tourists are staying home, and frankly, can you blame them? What we're witnessing is a fundamental shift in the world's longest peaceful border. The days of easy movement between the U.S. and Canada might be ending. Now let me connect the dots here, because these aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a coordinated shift that most people aren't seeing. What we're witnessing is the end of what immigration scholars call North American exceptionalism, the idea that the US and Canada had a special relationship that made movement between them easier than anywhere else in the world. For decades, if you were American or Canadian, crossing the border was almost trivial. Sure, you needed documents after 9/11, but the presumption was that you belonged on both sides of that border. Business travelers crossed daily, families straddled both countries, retirees moved freely between winter homes. That era is ending. Both countries are now treating each other more like they treat any other foreign nation. Enhanced security, increased scrutiny, enforcement over facilitation. But here's what's driving this change, and it's not what you might think. It's not anti-immigrant sentiment, it's global migration pressure. The Canada-US border has become an unexpected pressure valve for worldwide migration, and neither country was prepared for that. When someone flies from India to Toronto and then walks across the border near Plattsburgh, New York, that's not the kind of migration either country's policies were designed to handle. The systems broke down, and now both countries are overcompensating. The result? Everyone suffers. The Quebec family with 15 years of roots, the Canadian tourist getting their phone searched, the American business traveler avoiding trips to Montreal, the economic relationships that took decades to build. This affects real people with real lives, and these changes are accelerating faster than most people realize. If you're planning to cross the US-Canada border for any reason, business, tourism, family visits, or immigration, you need to stay informed about these changes. Here's what I need from you. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. These policies are changing weekly, sometimes daily, and what you don't know could literally cost you your future in either country, thousands of dollars in legal fees, or at minimum a very unpleasant border experience. But more importantly, I want to build a community here. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you experienced increased border scrutiny lately? Are these changes affecting your travel or immigration plans? Have you or someone you know been affected by the new enforcement policies? Your experiences help others in our community prepare. Last week, a viewer's comment about device searches helped 3 other people avoid problems at the border. That's the power of this community. Also, if you're an immigration lawyer, policy expert, or work in border services and want to share insights, reach out to me directly. I'm always looking for expert perspectives to help make sense of these changes. And if you found this analysis helpful, share it with someone who needs to know. A family member planning a trip, a friend considering immigration, a colleague who travels for business. Information is power, especially when policies are changing this fast. The US-Canada border has always been special in world history. Families spread across both sides, economies so intertwined they're hard to separate, cultures that blend seamlessly from Seattle to Vancouver, from Detroit to Windsor, from Buffalo to Toronto. For over a century, this border represented what was possible when neighboring countries chose cooperation over confrontation, when they built bridges instead of walls, when they recognized that prosperity was shared, not hoarded. But this week's news shows us that era might be changing. Whether it's the Quebec family packing their life into boxes, the Canadian tourist afraid to bring their phone across the border, the American business owner choosing video calls over travel, or the thousands of people from around the world seeing opportunity turn into enforcement, these aren't just policy changes happening in government offices, they're human stories, they're economic realities, they're the reshaping of relationships that have defined North America for generations. The question isn't whether these changes will continue, they will. The question is whether we'll adapt to them thoughtfully, or whether we'll let fear and politics drive policies that could damage one of the world's most successful international relationships. I'll be tracking every development, talking to experts, and most importantly, sharing the stories of real people affected by these changes. Because ultimately, immigration isn't about policies, it's about people. Here in InfoExpress, thanks for spending the time to really understand what's happening at the world's longest border, and how it's changing everything we thought we knew about North American migration. Next week, we'll be diving into the legal challenges already being mounted against some of these new enforcement policies, plus exclusive interviews with families affected by the changes. Don't miss it. See you next week, and remember, stay informed, stay connected, and take care of each other.